everyone, and welcome back to HR Talks with Leash. I hope you're all doing well. So today we're back with another career conversations with Leash, and I'm really happy to introduce Alysha Campbell to the Careers Conversation with Leash playlist. She is an award-winning, best-selling author and a highly respected strategic HR leader with a decade of experience that encompasses all facets of human resource management, from executing successful multi-million-dollar workforce recruitment and optimization projects to spearheading employee culture initiatives. Alysha has truly seen and done it all in the HR space. So I'm really, really happy, Alysha, that you're on the Career Conversations with Leash talk today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Alysha, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for our chat.
Same, really, really excited. So just to start off the conversation, it would be really interesting to understand like why you decided to go into HR and like what that path looked like. Because I think some of my subscribers, they may, look at going into HR as there may be like a specific career path that they think they have to go down, but they don't need to necessarily. So I was just wondering, like, what has that been like for you?
Yeah, great question. HR was never on my roadmap. It was never on my vision board. It was never something that I ever saw myself doing. When I graduated, I actually graduated with a degree in accounting, believe it or not. And it was still at the height of the 2008 recession. And I went to a recruitment firm for them to help me find a job in accounting or in my minor, which was marketing. And they actually ended up offering me a job. They said, you're great with people, you're personable. Do you want to get into talent management, like recruiting? And, I had just graduated, I got tons of student debt. And so I was like, sure, it's a job. I didn't know that I would love it. And, 10 years later, now I'll be in a career and really now run my own consultancy firm because of that one opportunity. And so I did kind of fall into talent management in a way that was very unexpected. Mm-hmm. But what I learned very quickly is how I love people, and specifically helping people in their careers. And this is really important because we spend so much time at work. And so helping people find the best opportunities where they light up, they're excited, they're driven, they're challenged is something that got me really excited and really allowed me to love what I do because I was helping people find those opportunities. So it was my opportunity to help other people and find their right roles and opportunities. And it just kind of went from there.
No, that sounds great. And I think I've had like conversations like with some of my subscribers as well about this, because not everyone has gone into HR via the HR route, as in like they did a degree in it. And then, it is different. I think I've had some people say to me, they've gone into HR from studying psychology. And to be honest, I actually studied psychology myself and went down that route. So I like how you said that, you helping people is something that you thought would work as well within the HR space, because I feel like a lot of people do think that. I also think that in some ways, because I've kind of always had a desire to help people. Is that something have you always had a desire to help people in general, would you say?
Yeah, always. I'm very customer service oriented and focused, and I just never thought about the workforce as helping people, like doing a job within HR as helping people. I always saw it as more like the administrative, department and the paper pushing department, because that's what we're told for so long. And that's what's portrayed on TV and stuff like that. So it never was that exciting, climb the corporate ladder in the HR department. Like, it was never a thing when I was up and coming. And so when I got it wasn't even when I got the role, although I was incredibly grateful, for me, it was a stopgap. Like, it was just something to get me to the next opportunity, not realizing this was going to be my career in so many different facets and realms. So I think today, when I think about where HR was when I started, and even starting in talent management and then pivoting to the HR space, and where it is today, it is so much more like the way it's presented and talked about, and how key it is to business operations. It's night and day different. And so I think that's important that, as people see HR today, it's like, ooh, like this sexy thing where you're hiring people and like you're growing and scaling companies and all the things. It was like, no, back in the day, it was, the administrative or the paper pushing type of, persona that it kind of had for so many years, until more and more organizations realized, wait, hold on, our biggest asset is our people. And then all these things with like culture and employee wellness and, employee engagement are now regular things, where back in the day it really wasn't.
No, I agree with you there. I think one thing I can point out from that actually though is I still feel like people don't really understand what HR is in that sense, because I
Mhm.
think there's some people, especially like those who are kind of going from university into the working world, that don't understand that there's so many different parts of like HR. So I think
Yes.
in terms of getting that message across, I think it's important for, you know, us to be doing like things like what we're doing today, in order for people to understand that it's more than that. Because yeah, it has definitely changed so much. Like now I'm in the HR space and I can see like all of the different things that you can be a part of, like you said, like employee engagement, and it's there's more creativity to helping people and employees. But in terms of HR like being advertised and people understanding it, would you say that like more, well, I feel more people are understanding it now, but would you say that there's still like areas for us to improve in terms of people understanding what we do?
Oh my God, yes. I agree. People think HR is just there to fire people. Like, I think
Yeah.
that's the persona that that department has and will probably continue to have. Or a lot of things that I hear is HR is just for the leadership or for the management. They're not for me. They're not for the employee, which is absolutely false. And so there are these misconceptions, not only of like what HR does, but who HR works for or
Yeah.
what their motives are. And so I think that is a whole thing in and of itself. And then I think when it comes to HR and just the department, or the not even department, sorry, the field of human resources, there's something for everybody. And I mean that in all honesty, like if you're really creative and you love to create programs and event planning, that's employee engagement. If you're really into data and analytics, there's HR data and insights. If you're really into diversity, equity, and inclusion, as we've heard over the past couple of years, that is now a full out department or role within HR. If you love hiring people, that's talent acquisition and recruitment. If you love succession planning or a professional or if you like succession planning or professional development, that is career succession within organizations and helping to build out learning and development programs. So no matter what skill you have or what that looks like for you, you can find a role within the human resources department. And I think when you break it down in that way, you can see that how robust human resources is, number one, and number two, the impact it has within a company. Because so many people just think, oh, HR just fires people. They're
Yeah.
building out your LMS system. They're building out your training, your coaching, your leadership development programs. They're building out your employee engagement surveys. Your onboarding experience has now been elevated. The swag that you get on your desk when you start a job didn't just appear. Like someone had to methodically think about what would someone want on their first day working at our company? What experience do we want to provide? What does that look like? Those meetings that just get populated on your calendar when you start a company, that just doesn't get happen. Like people have to think about these things and craft and curate these things to the person. So that all takes a very skilled individual with that insight and knowledge to do that properly. And that's just one piece of the pie. There's so many other things that, again, whether you're in data, whether in your events, whether you love people, whether you love writing policies or programs, whatever it is, you can find a home in human resources.
I'm so happy that you said all of this, just because I find a lot of people will reach out to me and say, I don't think that I've got the experience and the skills to go into HR because I haven't got any kind of HR experience. But I honestly think that if you've got certain transferable skills, like kind of how you said,
Mhm.
then that can allow you to get into the space, but it's how you kind of link those experiences back to the HR field, I believe. And so I
Yep.
think that I'm really happy that you touched on that. And I think that that kind of goes into like my next question for you in terms of like advice about someone who doesn't understand like what area of HR they want to get into. Like what do you think the best thing for them to would be for them to do in order to kind of
Mhm.
think about what path may be right? Because as we said, like there's so many different transferable skills that you can have, but how can you understand or think about what's the best path for you to go down out of all of these different areas in the HR field?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I think it comes back down to, what do you love to do?
Yeah.
I would say see human resources as the container, and you as the, particles or the fluid inside the container. HR is just the department, but if you have skills or passion for data, if you have skills or passion for information systems, events, program management, learning and training, hiring, employee development, um, diversity, equity, and inclusion, corporate social responsibility, really anything, even just coordination or administration, because there's still paperwork and stuff that needs to get done, and
Oh yeah.
information from one department to another. You can find that in human resources. So I would say, what is it one that you really love to do? Like, you want to get up every single day and do it. And then from there, number two, understanding how that fits into human resources. So again, if you love being that first engagement that someone has with an organization, then maybe you should be in talent management, where you're hiring the next talent coming into the door, or you're part of the onboarding team or HR administration team, where you're building and curating onboarding experiences for all these new hires. Or if you really love coaching, then maybe it's getting into the learning and development areas of the HR team. So there's always an area that will connect back. That's going to be exciting and passionate for you.
Yeah.
And
No.
then I think it's understanding, how HR interacts with the rest of the in company, because HR is really an organizational department. So
Yeah.
no matter if people are working in IT or sales or operations or any department of the organization, they're going to interact with you in some shape or form. So how does that make you feel? Does that make you excited, scared, nervous, not interested? Like, realize that your role will have impact in some area of kind of that value chain. So do you want to be more in the background? Do you want to be more front facing, somewhere in the middle? Do you want to be more in a consulting capacity versus a day-to-day tactical? So there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of opportunity, I would say, when you begin to look at human resources in that area. And then last is, talk to people, like literally search talent acquisition person or specialist in LinkedIn, or have some coffee chats with HR directors or HR business partners, or recruiters or learning and development specialists. Anywhere that you're interested in, find people who do that job and chat with them. Set up some time, learn what is a day in the life like here or in this type of position, and then begin to start to see yourself doing that type of work and that type of role. And you'll then start to see, okay, is this really for me, or is this something that I don't want to explore right now at this time? So definitely do your research. But I would say I haven't met anyone who hasn't been able to pivot or realign their career into human resources, because there's a lot of versatility and flexibility and opportunity in that department.
Wow, no, that's a great answer. And I agree with everything that you said. Like, I do think it's important to do everything that you can to try and understand the different areas, to understand what you like, to understand what the best path will be for you. And I think that kind of leads into what my next question was going to be. I feel like you answered it to as much as I feel like you've basically answered the question, but I still feel
That's okay.
I still feel like I'm going to say it, because it's still, there's probably more things that we could do in terms of being promoted. So if you're trying to get promoted in the HR field, let's say you have been able to get a job as a HR administrator or a learning and development assistant, for example. If you want to go up the ladder, if you want to progress to become a HR business partner or advisor, what should you be doing to achieve this? I feel like a lot of the things that you said, you can also reciprocate that into this. But is there anything else that, in terms of promotions, that you could be doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say definitely get involved in the area, even if you don't have the title yet. So put your hand up for projects, ask questions, find out not only what's going on right now, but what's our plans for 6 months, 1 year down the line, and then start to think about how you can, strategically place yourself with that team or in that project or in that role, so that you can then start to think ahead, right? So with a lot of managers, like HR directors or senior HR managers, we love someone who takes initiative, someone who could say, hey, you're going to be doing this, so I created this handy dandy onboarding guide so that it really helps for the onboarding process. That to me shows initiative, that you're thinking ahead of the game. You're already really excited and engaged, because this was something that was just something you wanted to do, you like it, you see the value in it, and I'm going to be like, hey, this is someone that I actually want on my team, or this is actually someone who should now like be a part of what we're doing. So I would say, don't wait for someone to give you the tap on the shoulder. Create the opportunity yourself. That is how I got a lot of my roles, where you come in as one position and I'm touching 3 to 5 different things at any given time, to the point like, okay, wow, Alysha can do a lot. So let's get her a little bit here, or spend her time a little bit there. And very quickly you'll realize that you're in meetings with, your C-level leadership, your senior management, your executives, and you're touching very high level projects. So, don't ask for permission. Don't wait for someone to open the door. Create your own door and walk through it. And that's a very key staple in my career. And that's how I was able to move quite quickly up the corporate ladder from that perspective. And then I would say third is, if there's an opportunity or you're not seeing an opportunity, I would say find where you shine. So for me, I learn incredibly quickly. I love to be engaged at high levels. And if it doesn't challenge me, I'm going to get bored. So if I was at an organization where I was ready for that next step and there wasn't any next step where I looked outside. And I would say that was me 7 years ago, and it's amplified even more now in the current job market we're in. If people aren't happy with where they work, if they don't feel like they're being valued, if they're being challenged, if they're given opportunities to grow, they are going to leave. So I would say this is now where, maybe back in my day it was like, oh, it's taboo to be a job hopper and to not be at a place for more than a year. That's not the case anymore. So we're in a really special time in the market where, I would say employees have gotten an opportunity to own their voice again. And so if you want an opportunity, again, speak up, say what you want, outline what that looks like, put in a little bit of the work and make it easier for them to say yes. Don't wait for anybody to open that door for you. And if you try and it's not working, find where you're wanted or where that next role looks like for you. And it may be a bit like, oh, wow, that's pretty intense. But listen, no one is going to look after your career like you. You have to own it. You have to be accountable to it. So that was something I learned very quickly. If you want that 10, 15K increase, you're not going to get it with, every annual salary getting 2 to 3%. You're just not. You got to go to that next company. You got to get that next role. So you always have to be thinking, what are the jobs or the experiences or opportunities I need that's going to get me to where I want to be 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, and then work backwards. What work do I need to be a part of? Who do I need to be talking to? What experiences do I need to get? And then those are all going to be elements of your resume to then get you that next role. So think of your own career in HR as your own kind of, strategy, your own career ladder, your own strategy, and map it out. What can I do here and what can I not do here? And that's really important, because larger organizations will have a larger HR team in a good way. So if you're like, okay, I want to do learning and development, they'll have a learning and development team with an LMS system and a curriculum and all the things. A smaller startup probably has 1 or 2 HR people wearing 10 hats at any given time. So if you're like, hey, I love every day being different, then that might be the environment for you. Versus, well, I only just want to do this one thing. Then you're probably more akin to a larger company that has the team, the budget, and the resources to do that one thing. So also think about, what are the environments you want to work in that will align to the work you want to do, and then begin to plan and outline how that's going to influence and create the path you want for yourself.
No, that advice sounds amazing. I think I can relate to so much of the things that you've said, especially to one of the main points that you said throughout that, I think, is, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. And I did actually see that this is like a quote on your website as well. So I think that is a really big thing, because if you're very comfortable in a situation and you're not feeling challenged, then it's harder to grow in that sense. And I feel like I've kind of experienced that in a lot of ways, because in my current job at the moment, there is much more that I am trying to do. Like I will be going into a business partner role basically quite soon. And to me, when I first saw that opportunity open up, at first I was a bit like, am I going to be able to do that? And I just wanted to touch on this, because I think there's a lot of people that sometimes they don't want to take the challenge because they're maybe scared, or they have fear as to, if I mess up, this is going to happen, or I might not be able to do it to the best of my ability. So in that sense, what advice would you have for people who they want to jump to the challenge, but they might be afraid to do it, or like, what would you say for that?
Yes. Don't it's fear is tricky, and I know what it's like to be fearful of something, to be scared, to feel like, okay, I'm safe right now, I'm comfortable, feels good. But I think for someone to make a change, there has to be something more in you that is just crying to get out. If you and I say that to say not everybody has that. Some people want to just have their job, have their little corner of the organization, and they're satisfied. And that's awesome. Like, you found your lane. But there's people who are like, they're just hungry and they have a fire that just can't be quenched. And that's me. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's what led me to go to all these jobs or go to all these companies. And that what led me to start Culture Shift HR, because I was in a space where I was stuck. I was, emotionally burnt out, mentally exhausted. I loved my job and the work I do because I knew it was meaningful, but I didn't love where I was doing it.
Right.
And so it's like, well, why do I have to spend 8, 9, 10 hours a day doing something that I love in a place that doesn't appreciate it, where I could work with people who actually do? And it's me, and my value is amplified because they find value in what I do. And then I was like, then let me just go find people who want that. And I mean, it took time and it took a lot of ups and downs and figuring stuff out. But I'm now in a position where I run, our own HR and DE&I consultancy firm. We have a team of 3. We're growing. We have clients all over North America and the UK. And if it wasn't for that constant, I want more, and me following it and not just drowning it out like, oh, that's nonsense, or hey, that's too scary, I would never be where I am today. Like, it would not be possible.
Yeah.
I think if you're fearful, try to figure out where is this fear coming from, because fear comes from our head. Like, we create our own fears. So what is it that is holding you back? Is it, like worried about failing? Then, but if we don't fail, we never learn,
Mm-hmm.
or this could be the next big opportunity that allows you to learn something even more amazing than before. I would say if you're scared on something, do it anyways, because you're
Yeah.
going to learn something and come out of it even better, even if you fall flat on your face, than if you just stay safe. And I think it's important that I use fear as a driver. I use fear as kind of like that gut check that's like, you should do this. If you are scared, this is what you need to be doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do things, and I don't have everything figured out. Like, I'm in the process of growing my team right now, and I'm interviewing people, and I'm like, oh, and I now, mind you, it's different when you're working in a company and you're hiring people, because like,
Yeah.
you know what questions to ask, all the things. But when it's your own company, you're like, oh my God, like, am I asking the right things? Is this going to work? Like, all these doubts started going in my head. I'm like, hold on a second. Like, how? And it's like, you have to kind of talk to yourself, like, how long have you been doing this? It's like
Yeah.
10 years. And you run which company? Culture Shift HR. And you're scared because I'm not scared. Okay, like, then, like, there isn't anything founding my fear.
Yeah.
It's just, it's new. But like, to me, it's like, the whatever is on the other side of that fear is just, it's so worth it. And I've proven that time and time again, where it was literally just blind faith. Like, I'm going on a limb, putting my hand up for this, or I'm going on a limb, starting my own company. I'm going on a limb, doing the speaking gig or figuring this out. And I get excited by it. That's what keeps my career, interesting and moving forward. And so I would say, feel the fear, do it anyways, and you won't regret it. It's going to be amazing.
No, I'm really happy that you said that, because I feel like there's been times where, for me as well, like, I do think that if something's fearful or it's scary or it's different, I would just use it as a driver. So like, even
Yes.
the experience that I'm going to be having really soon with this business partner role, I'm very excited to do it, to be honest. It is a step up from what I'm doing, but I think, as you said, the only way to grow is to challenge yourself, is to move out of your comfort zone,
Yes.
to do things that you may not necessarily do, because if you don't do it, how are you going to know? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
I think as well, in terms of like, so I would say, just from my experience as being an entry-level professional and starting out my career, being able to put your hand up for specific projects and things that you may not have necessarily thought that you would have done is one of the greatest things to do. Like, for example, I at my company at the moment, we're kind of trying to expand out like our diversity and inclusion initiatives, and I am leading one of the pillars that we have within diversity and inclusion. But it was, my manager just said to me, Alysha, like, do you want to lead this? I've never done anything like this before, but I thought, do you know what? This is going to help me, and it's going to allow me to develop myself within project management, leadership. I think you also have to think about everything that is tied to taking different opportunities, because it is going to develop you in the long run, so that when you do get to an opportunity where you may be promoted or something, then it's not gonna, you've already got some skills in your pocket that you've learned from an experience that you want to do. So yeah, I agree with everything that you're saying here, and I think it's important to understand that and just kind of have that confidence to go. So yeah, definitely agree.
And Alysha, I love how you said like learning these skills and learning, you know, what this opportunity is going to bring. And I think that, and I don't know where this mindset came from, and I've had it for so long, where I'm so afraid of something because I don't want to mess it up. But it's like, like, if you go into it that I'm going to mess this up, I'm going to make a mistake, I'm going to do something wrong, like, then you not prepare yourself, but it's like you set the realistic expectations. Like, I feel like we've come across as a culture where, like, if you're going to do something, you have to do it right the very first time. And it's like, no one comes out of the womb walking, talking, and all these things. You have to learn these skill sets, right? Like, and even when you think about us as babies, like, we fell down a million times, but we had to get back up because we have to walk. We want to get to that other end of that room. And, you know, by darn it, we're going to get there. So you push yourself up and you try again. And I think we need to get a little bit back of that bravery, where it's like, you know, okay, I made a mistake, or maybe I sent an email to the wrong person or to the wrong manager. And it's like, oh, in that moment, your heart sinks and you're like, oh my God, like, this is the worst. Trust me, it is not the worst. There will be worser moments. And it's just a part of learning, because I bet those are the moments where my heart literally fell to my stomach, where I was like, I will never make that mistake again. And I put protocols in place where I will, and then the mistake will never happen again. But I had to learn it that way to then build the habit to be successful for what I was doing next. So sometimes failing and actually making mistakes makes you better in the long run, and build up your character and to build up who you are. So, and I think it's important to that point, being in an environment where you can fail safely. Like, if you're in a company where you fail and you are getting ridiculed and you are getting chastised and you are getting reprimanded to the nth degree because you made a mistake, I wouldn't want to fail either, because, oh my gosh, like, I'm in fear of losing my job. And like, that's a very uncomfortable feeling. That's a very toxic culture to be in. But if you make a mistake and your manager's like, hey, we all make mistakes, you know, let me know if you have questions next time. I'm here to support. Or, hey, like, if you want me to review your email before you send it off to the CEO, more than happy to do that. Like, to make sure there's no spelling or grammar errors, because I want you to be presented in the best way possible. Great. Like, that's where you need to be. And if you want to do something, but you're like, there's a culture where there's that element of like, if you fail, it's going to be the end of the world. Get out of there before, like, sooner rather than later, because that will hold you back and that will paralyze you in so many ways that you didn't even think was possible. So I think finding yourself in the environments where you can fail safely is where you're going to learn and grow and be even better. So, you know, try to create that environment for yourself or get into one, because that is going to help you be successful.
So I think my next question, it kind of links into what we've kind of discussed in general, but I think it's great for us to kind of dive into this one a little bit. So what would you say is like the best way for you to continuously learn as a HR professional? And also off the back of that as well, in terms of like career development as a HR professional, like what would you say the best way is to kind of map out where you're trying to go as a professional, and how you want to develop?
Yeah, great question. Again, my career has been I just learn as I go. Because again, remember, I didn't go to school to be a recruiter. I don't think anybody really goes to school to be a recruiter. They just, a lot of them kind of just fall into it. I think if you are wanting to do professional development, what you should focus on is, again, what are the areas that you need to be building up that muscle in. So for example, if you are in the data analytics space and you want to apply that now to the HR team, what are some key HR or human resource analytics and insights that you now need to be aware of? So that could be a Google search, that could be an online course, that could be a YouTube video, that could be meeting and having a coffee chat with someone who's the head of HR analytics and data. That could be, you know, reading a book or doing a self-paced program. There are multiple ways to learn any skill, any area of expertise. And I think learn it in a way that is meaningful for you. If you need that one-to-one coaching or one-to-one or group environment, take a course. If you like to watch a series of videos and like to do it yourself and practice it, learn and watch another video, do it that way. If it's through learning other people's experiences, set up a series of coffee chats and just take notes and compare and contrast one person's experience to another. I don't think there's a wrong way of how to learn. I think it's finding the best way that works for you and then executing it. And I think if you are trying, I say that because there's, especially nowadays, there's a million ways to consume information. And of course, you know, and we'll talk about this in a second, like the certifications or the, you know, tons and millions of conferences out there. But, you know, that aside, taking the information that's going to be meaningful for you in a way that is going to align to how you learn and how you grow. I think that's important because at the end of the day, if you know something, it doesn't matter if you learned it, again, in a classroom, online, the world is changing. I could learn something watching a 5-hour video. Someone could take a 2-week course and we know the exact same stuff.
That's true.
It's just the world we live in now, right? So taking the information that's meaningful for you, get the support that's meaningful for you. That's going to help you get in that information. From a professional development perspective, I like to talk to people. That's how I learn. So I go to conferences, HR conferences, like Google them in your area or in your city. There's going to be tons of them. And then they could be specific, like there's going to be conferences in recruitment, conferences in learning and development, conferences in workplace culture, conferences in DE&I. You will find so many things, whether in person, virtual, hybrid, you name it, you will find it. So I love going to conferences and just expanding my network. Through the introduction of one person, I've gotten to, you know, massive events. I have spoken on stages. I have met CEOs. I've gotten opportunities to partner with incredible companies just from meeting one person. So for me, that type of interaction is priceless. So I love connecting with someone versus reading a book or taking an online course or going to school because it's real, it's in the moment. There are incredible HR blogs out there. So like HR Brew, I'm kind of blanking right now, but if you just type in like HR blogs or HR newsletters, like there's so many of them. And again, they can all be boiled down to a specific topic or a specific area. To get in a weekly newsletter, learn that way. There's tons of HR podcasts out there. Even, you know, this one, there's tons more too. Like learn from people having conversations. So I would say professional development is what you want to make it. If it's important for you to get a certification and have a piece of paper on that wall, go get it. If it's something that you're like, I just want to know so I can be better and more robust in my career, great. Make it what is meaningful for you. Now, if you're growing your career and say you have the you know, want or wish or goal to be like a chief HR officer or like head of HR, then yes, probably getting some certification or designation is going to be helpful in the sense that it shows that, okay, you got the, you know, the course or the certification or like the education to do this specific area. But there are many, many, many HR professionals who have reached that level of tier, myself included, that I didn't go to school for HR. I don't have, you know, HR certifications behind my name, but it's because the experience that I have is so versatile and it's global and it's done so many things. So it kind of goes back to my earlier point where you can really craft and create your own HR career. It's kind of choose your own adventure. And I would say, don't get intimidated by, oh, I don't have this credential, or I don't have that. If you have the experience, if you have the knowledge, if you have the passion and the drive to do something, your people will see that in your interviews and they will compare you with someone who has an accreditation versus you who don't. and you present that much better, you're going to get the job over somebody who has the certification, hands down.
Definitely.
Because at the end of the day, that's just a piece of paper, that's just 3 letters. But the what you bring to the role and how you show up and how you make that come to life, a piece of paper can't bring that. So don't be intimidated by those types of elements on job descriptions or in roles that you're being promoted for or putting your hand up for, because it's, at the end of the day, it's a consideration, but I would say it's not a determining factor. So don't let it scare you or make you feel like you're not good enough, because again, from a girl who literally did not go to school for HR, did not go to school to be a recruiter, to now running my own 6-figure HR and diversity, equity, and inclusion firm. Listen, anything is possible. So don't
That
let
is so
all
true. I am so happy
yeah.
you said this, because I get a lot of comments or people saying, do I need to be certified in HR in order to get a job in HR? And it's just not the case. I think, as you said, in terms of your career, it is really in your hands. Obviously, having the credentials and accreditations and things, it can be a bonus in some cases to you, but I think it's it's what you do with the knowledge that you're gathering, because as you said, it is just a piece of paper. Some people might go to university and do HR and not even learn anything about HR,
Exactly.
and it's not valuable, but I think it comes down to, a lot of it comes down to the passion that you have in terms of wanting
Yeah.
to pursue a career within HR as well. Because I think for my personal circumstance, the master's that I did in HR was beneficial for me, because I knew I wanted to get into a career in HR after I did my psychology degree. I knew I wanted to understand the aspects of it more. And for me, going to a university that also, it also kind of advertises career opportunities and placement, so you can do it alongside your degree, that helped me, because I knew that was
Absolutely.
an avenue to go down where I can get the accreditation and also kind of get a job out of it in some way. So I think it is about,
Yep.
like, what are you trying to do? Like, where are you trying to go? And yeah, as you said, like, you really don't need to have a degree, to be honest, at all. You might have so
Yeah.
much experience from like a job that you've done in the past that can completely correlate to what you do in HR. So I completely get everything that you're saying, and I'm really happy that you pointed that out, because I think it's important for people to understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also wanted to just go into like making connections in the workplace whilst you're in HR, because I think sometimes, obviously I know within HR you are supporting the business, as well as, like, employees and things, but in terms of making connections with stakeholders across the business, and especially if you're someone who's just entered the HR space, what would you say is the best way to do that? I know we've already kind of discussed, like, having like coffee chats with people and just kind of learning different people's experiences, but in terms of becoming as visible as possible, is there anything else that we could be doing as HR professionals to be as visible as possible to the stakeholders in the company?
Yes, 100%. And I would say that, especially if you want to grow your career in the company and in HR, getting visibility and buy-in from your stakeholders is half the job.
Yeah,
Because again, there's this stigma that HR is just a paper pushing department,
exactly.
or doesn't add that much value. But we are strategically thinking workforce planning, learning and development, upskilling, operations, information and data. Like, we are a massive part of how an organization runs and functions. And just to, to that point, look at the Great Resignation. For so long, we were like, oh, talent comes and talent goes, till you have people quitting at record rates because they don't want to work the same way that they worked before. And
Mm.
then you have deliverables not being done, clients not being happy, a workplace culture that is getting toxic. And then you want to say, oh, it's just talent. No, your talent is the heartbeat of your business. And
Mm.
I think all of that to say is that, because there's such a stigma on HR, you connecting with stakeholders, talking to them about what you do, giving them an insight on, like, your responsibilities, accountabilities, and what that looks like, is going to make sure that they pull you in at the right moments.
Yeah.
Because so many times HR gets the very last notice of, oh, hey, we're doing this and it's happening tomorrow. And it's like, they've been planning this for months. And it's like, HR is a strategic partner in the business. Like the way we grow, the way we operate, the way we even connect and make sure we're operationalized for the growth of our business. HR needs to be the key and front and center of that. So the way you want to connect with your stakeholders is do research, number one. So if you are, for example, working for the engineering department, who's the director of engineering? What's their key projects? What's their, key trouble points? Find out maybe some key roles they're hiring for. Whatever that looks like, do your research first. From there, reach out to them to say, hey, I'm in the HR department. My role is recruitment or learning and development, and I'm going to be doing some work with your team. I would love to set up a time to connect and learn more about, the key problems or challenges you're facing, and share more about myself and the work that I do and how I'm going to help you with XYZ problem. That is how you begin to create value and really break that stigmatism of what HR does from a back office perspective. That's when you begin to position HR as a strategic partner, strategic, guide to help managers navigate the landscape of the workforce. Because if they are getting, if they're having performance issues with a team member, if they aren't being able to hire or find the right talent, if they aren't getting the best performance out of their team, HR is the key to unlocking what's going on, having those conversations, figuring out the tools. So we are very vital to an organization. And the more you can communicate that and articulate it and get others to see it, the more visibility you're going to have, the more promotion and opportunity that's going to be presented to you, and the more opportunity you're going to have to really navigate your career in the way that you want it to be seen fit. And you're going to have allies that can advocate and can speak accolades to the work that you're doing. So that visibility piece is, when I say it's literally half the job, it's half the job. Because the moment they don't realize what you're doing, the moment you get left out of conversations. And it is exhausting. I will say that, because it's constantly like, I do this, or let me help you. But the moment they realize how you partner, you'll never have to advocate again. They will be saying, hey, we're doing a kickoff meeting. I want you here. You're my HR partner. Or, hey, we're going to be hiring and a massive hiring blitz. We're going to hire 30 people. We need to talk about these roles and how we're going to timeline this out. You will be key to these decisions and these projects in a way that would not have been possible if they didn't know the value and the impact your role has within the business. So put yourself out there, connect with people, learn about the business. This is so key. Learn what your business does, what they sell, what markets they serve, their employees, the skill sets, the culture. Learn your business. That is A1 in an HR role. Learn your business, no matter what role you're in. Learn the company, connect with stakeholders, and then deliver. Be that partner. Always think a step ahead. Always think about, if I was in this position, what would I want to, what would I want someone in my shoes to do? And then, you'll be fine.
No, you've just dropped a lot of gems there. Like, even I'm like, oh, I need to do some of this.
Yes.
Definitely transitioning to my new role for myself. I think that reaching out to the different divisions and departments based on potentially what departments I'm going to be overseeing when I get into that role, it's so important for me to be getting out there and saying, look, I'm your career and performance management partner. Like, let me have a chat with you and understand like what you need. What is it that you need from me? What can I analyze from what you've been doing already, and how can I make recommendations based on that? I think that is so important. I think it's, as you said, the vision part of our role is literally half of it. I think that's something that people are not understanding as much. I think sometimes with HR and the field, it's like, we're just kind of within HR. We don't really need to expand out. Even with the business piece that he was talking about, like, understanding the business is essential. And I think a lot of people don't get that. They'll just stay within the HR knowledge that they know. And they don't understand the business. So when the business aren't inviting them to these meetings and aren't like kind of taking their ideas into consideration, they're wondering, well, why is that? But you don't really know what's going on, so they're not gonna involve in the conversation, are they? So that is so important that we kind of like touched on that, so people understand the importance and the value. of understanding the business and connecting with stakeholders. So yeah, thank you for
Yes.
going through that. I also wanted to touch on as well, because the journey from you moving from like a HR position in like the corporate world to having your own consultancy, I just kind of wanted to understand like how that progression was for you, because you know, for some people that may be really difficult. You're moving out of an environment that, you know, everything's kind of set already, and then you start your consultancy and it's more so on you. There's a lot of independency in that. Yes, you also may have a team and everything like that, but this is something you've started, so you've got to create a whole like environment. I just wanted to understand a little bit more about that transition and how that has been for you, and also in terms of being in the corporate space. Some people do want to start consultancy straight away, but do you see the value of having like that 9 to 5 first for a while to understand different skills and then move into like having a consultancy? What's your thoughts on that? I know I said quite a lot there, but
No, it's great. So when I started Culture Shift, I started it still working full time.
right.
So I would get up. So if I'm working 9 to 5, I would get up at 6, work from 6 to 8 on my business. And that could be finding clients, doing cold calls, reaching out to people, doing research, putting together proposals, whatever that would be. And then to give myself an hour, get ready for work, be at work for 9, work my full day. And then when I get home from, again, 6 to 8, back to the Culture Shift business, follow up on the emails, do more outreach, all the things, refine my website, whatever it was I'm doing, and then shower, go to bed, and do that the next day and the next day. It takes a lot of discipline. I didn't go full-time into, like, I'm full-time in the business now. That just happened this year, 2022. So for 3 years, I worked full-time and managed my consultancy, even during the peak of COVID, being incredibly busy at work at my 9 to 5 and incredibly busy at my consultancy. It was something that I wanted it so bad that there was nothing that was going to stop me from having it. And I think that's what it takes, because it is so easy to get discouraged, to feel like you're failing, to feel overwhelmed, to feel stressed, that it's so easy to be like, I'm just not going to do this. So you have to want it so much more than the pain or the agony or the stress that you're facing in that moment, because you know the goal that you want at the end of the day. There were days where I was exhausted, like working 15-hour days because I had to finish a project or submit an RFP, or plus do, like, you know, like sometimes our job doesn't end at 5 o'clock. I have to like do other stuff because there's just not enough hours. And working on weekends, I've sacrificed weekends for the past 4 years. Wow. I now, in the past month, I've made a goal of like, okay, Alysha, you have to have a weekend because you'll burn out.
Yeah.
But for years, it was around the clock. Maybe I got an afternoon just to like take a break, but it was right back at it the next day. And it was just something that when I say it was just something I could not let myself do, it was just a passion that I would be more upset at myself if I didn't do it than if I did it. And I think too, it was knowing what I wanted. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I just still don't know in the full entirety of what Culture Shift is going to grow into. I have ideas, I have thoughts, I have, you know, my imagination runs wild, but it can be so much more than that. And I like that there's that open possibility. I love that people bet on me when they're like, I'm going to go with Alysha. Like that, to me, that's everything, that they trust me with their business, with their strategy, with their people. Like I take so much pride in the clients that say, I'm going to work with Alysha, because it's like, it proves to me that all the work that I've done and all the things and all the dinners or social events and, you know, all the sacrifice I've made is worth it, because there's someone who's saying, I want to not just work with you, but I want to like give my hard-earned money to work with you. It speaks a lot, I think, to the work and the impact we have with businesses. And it makes me incredibly proud of myself, my team, to even say the fact that I have a team where like 3 years ago, it was just me. It's just, yeah, it's hard to describe when you write things down on paper and you envision something and then it comes to life. It's truly amazing. And so I just had this passion that was like, I don't know what this is going to lead to. All I know is I have to do it. And I'm so glad I never gave up, and that I had the support and the clients and all the things to get here, because I couldn't do it otherwise. And I think too, if you're wanting to do consulting and you're like, I just want to go straight into consulting, I definitely think it's possible. And I think
Right.
one thing that's key is that I'm a very competitive person. I'm a very driven person. And I think what got in my way probably earlier on was that I saw other competition, like I saw other vendors, other HR consultants, which there's millions of us. I
Yeah.
saw it as all competition. And so it came to a point where I was focusing more on what they're doing versus what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then when you change your mentality to there's enough for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody can have a seat at the table. Everyone can get what they need to grow their business. Everything opened up for me. It was never oh shoot, I missed out on that contract because so and so got it, or a client with another vendor. That's fine, because that means the next client that's right for me is on their way.
Yeah.
And when you change your perception and when you start to think and see, okay, what's mine is meant for me and it's coming, you don't sweat anything. And I think too, I can say that because I did take time to build culture shift while working. I refined what I did. I, was very intentional about who I partnered with, the work that I did and didn't do. So I took that time and had my bumps and bruises in a very safe environment where if I didn't get a client for a year, which did happen, for 18 months I had only one client, even though I was trying everything under the sun to grow. I still had my 9 to 5 to fall back on, right? So it provided me that safety net to build my confidence, my insight, my experience, talking to people, connecting, closing deals, running an organization before just going out into the deep. So I definitely think it's possible. I think, especially now with so many ways to learn and to get information and the resources, you can be set up for success a lot faster than I did. I think it's important that you don't do it alone. I did that. I was like, I'm just going to do it on my own.
Right.
Talk to your friends, talk to your network, reach out to other consultants, like just see these individuals as opportunities to learn. And that's what I didn't do. I saw everybody as my competitor, and I
Yeah.
had to keep my cards close to my chest, not realizing that I can learn from what they're going to tell me about their story. And like someone's going to learn from this podcast about,
Yeah.
wow, if I'm going to start my consultancy, I'm going to do this, not do this. And you're going to therefore be that much more faster and more agile than I was. And that's how it goes. So I think you could definitely start it out. If you want to get more experience, do corporate, learn the foundations of HR, the different areas, whatever that looks like. Start to hone in on what your specialty is. Do some side gigs or side projects on the side just to, see if that's even an area of consulting you want to do, and just play with it. Like, the worst that can happen is you do something, it doesn't work out, it's fine. Or you don't like it, it's fine. Like,
Yep.
nothing is ever the end of the world. And I think that's important. Like, that's what holds us back, is that fear that we talked about in the beginning. Like, we're so fearful, but it's not that bad. A mistake is not the end of the world.
No,
But I
it's
think
not.
betting
Yeah.
on yourself, if you don't take that chance, that will be a regret you will have. And that's something you don't want to live with. So take the chance, test it out, put yourself out there and see what can happen.
Wow, I took a lot from what you just said there, especially because that is one of my goals to have my own consultancy. Has been that for a while. So just understanding like the time and the effort that you've got to put into it, but also you have to
Yes.
remember your why. I think that's so important, because
Yes.
it will, if you don't know why you're doing it, then you most likely won't just
Exactly.
stop and quit. So I think, yeah, no, that is definitely important. And I like the fact that you've said that, you were still growing your consultancy whilst you were working as well. And you kind of had that to fall back on, but also, managing that. I know it must have been a lot, but understanding why you're doing that and understanding
Hmm.
benefits of
Yeah.
being able to pick up the different skills and networks and things that you got from your 9 to 5 as well within your
Yeah.
and bring that into your consultancy. I think that's amazing. And I also agree with what you're saying. Like, now in this time, you probably can start a consultancy a lot quicker, just because of everything that we've got
Yeah.
available to us. I
Yeah.
think it also even links back into the fact that there is so much knowledge out there that you can learn about starting a business and starting a consultancy, like just by looking that up and searching it and going
Yeah.
courses. There's so many different ways of doing things, I guess. So yeah, no, that makes so much sense. I've got a couple more points that I want to kind of like
Yeah.
touch on, if that's okay. Kind
Yeah.
of reverting back a little bit to like what we were talking about before in terms of HR in the workplace, but in terms of like dealing with specific challenges in the workplace, so I know challenges could kind of look like a lot of things. You might be challenged in a situation where you're there's an employee that doesn't like a certain policy or certain change that you might have created within the company. There's a lot of change that we have to deal with as like HR professionals, and I was just wondering from your perspective, like what's the best way for like HR professionals in those kind of scenarios to kind of deal with challenges?
Great question. To be in HR, you have to be resilient. I think,
Yeah.
because you're dealing with a lot of sensitive information. You're doing a lot of sensitive, work or projects. I mean, letting somebody go is not easy, especially if you are doing a restructuring and you have to let 30 people go in a day. It's a lot.
Mm.
Or you need to change a benefit or something, a company perk, and that people relied on and utilized, and now that's no longer with them. Now they're disgruntled and angry, and they're giving you feedback and all these things. I think if you're going to be in HR, know that change is a constant.
Yeah.
And as much as you get angry, like so many times I got angry, I was like, we just changed this, or we just did this. Why are we doing this again? It's going to be a constant. So if you don't like change, either get used to it and enjoy the ride, or, don't be in an area that hopefully doesn't change as much. But any company that's growing or evolving, there's going to be change and it's going to impact HR. So you kind of can't really get away
Yeah.
from it. I think it's understanding what made me frustrated about changes was I didn't know the why of the change. Like it's fine to change something, or, unfortunately when restructurings happen or,
Mhm.
downsizing happens, which is, I mean, it's real life. Like I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Without the why, it just feels like you're doing these like actions that have no purpose, that have no meaning, and that you're just a robot. But for me, when you understand the why, then it's like, okay, I understand the bigger picture. We're refocusing our footprint and we're aligning our talent to different regions or whatever that might be at the time. And I think if you can understand the why, it makes the change easier. And I think too, as an HR professional, we have to be change agents. We have to be change champions, because a lot of change eventually funnels through the HR department. So if it could be fine if you're not happy with it and that's not something you personally want to do or want to wish that was happening. But if
Mhm.
you're working for a company and you're in HR and your role is critical to how people engage in the workplace culture, you do have to get on side in the sense of like, this is not something I would want to do as a company, but I am aligned with the direction we're going,
Yeah.
because it's just going to make everything else that much harder if you don't come to some resolution internally of what's going on. So I think not every decision is going to make you happy. You're not going to align with everything. You're going to have a way better way or plan of doing something than maybe your manager wants it done.
Yeah.
Just know that be available for help, be available for support, share any feedback or insight you get as things are going on about a change, share it to those important people who should know so that hopefully things can get resolved. But it's just the way things go. A company is in constant change and flux. HR is key to that change being successful. So
Mhm.
if things have to happen, be happy that they're happening with you in the picture to help make it go as smoothly as possible. And
Mm.
that's what I would tell myself whenever I had to do a restructuring. The piece that I found was at least they're hearing it from me, and I know how I would deliver the news. I know how I would support and console them should they get upset by the news. And
Yeah.
I'd rather I do it than someone else who wouldn't take the time and the effort and the care to do it. So
Mm.
as much as I don't want to deliver this news, I find peace that it's me that's doing it in the best humanly way possible. So understanding and looking at like that is very helpful, even when things are constantly in flux.
Now, again, so many good points that you've like dropped there, and I think it's important that we understand that change is kind of it's inevitable, really, within HR. Like
Hmm.
it's something that will happen regardless,
Yes.
if it's the smallest change or the biggest change. Like there's gonna be change, and I think in like in the UK, so we have the CIPD as the professional body and everything, and one of
Yeah.
the main behaviors within and like qualities that you should have as a people professional on our CIPD profession map is change and being able to kind of adjust to that. So I think it's
Hmm.
important that people understand that, because I think sometimes they don't realize that, things can just take a turn. And it's like,
Yep.
how do you make sure that you're able to kind of deal with that? How can you make sure that you see it in an optimistic way in some senses as well, you know, if it's a direct change to, like, let's say the department within HR as well, like, you know, there's so many different restructures sometimes, and how does that affect you, but how can you be optimistic about it? So there's so many different things there, so I'm really happy that you kind of stated that. So one other thing that I wanted to mention is I was on LinkedIn the other day, and I was just kind of going through it, and I follow you on LinkedIn, so I saw like one of your posts that you put, and it kind of spoke about, and it's crazy because I was thinking about the same thing at this time. So you spoke about, in order to kind of catch up or get ahead, you must slow down. So I know we've spoken about so many things here, so many different areas of things that we can be doing, but I just wanted to kind of go a little bit deeper on that, into your thought process with that, because I think it's also important for us to remember that not everything's going to happen straight away, and we've got to like progressively like move forward in order to, you know, get ahead. So just wanted to kind of understand that a bit more from your side.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, it's like the way things progress and move, things can move incredibly fast, and we just get into the habit of go, go, go. But especially when you're running a business or you're doing a project, sometimes it's better to slow down and take your time than to just go with the pace that things were going at. And I think it's important to understand that by slowing down, we can pause, reflect, take the time to really think things through, and then go at it better, harder, faster than if we just keep going, 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 like on a hamster wheel. And so for me, what's been a challenge is I've been, you know, operating at like 150%, and plus that's just work. Then there's life and all the things that come with it. And I had to really understand that, okay, like I know when my body's getting tired. I know when I'm not at an optimal state. And I had to slow myself down to say, okay, you're going to take the next couple days off, or, you know, change your hours to get more rest, or to just take your time with something. And so it was a hard habit to break, because I'm just so used to just on to the next, not realizing that by us not slowing down for our bodies to catch up, we're not doing ourselves a good service. So the slowing down has allowed me to be so intentional, so even more hyper focused on what we're doing and why we're doing it. Because sometimes when we get into routines, we're just doing things because it's what we do, not taking the time to hold on a second. Is this adding value to my day? Am I, you know, is this going to increase the way that I do business, or, you know, make the partnerships I have more meaningful and more special? And so it's funny because I hate slowing down. Like my body just, it's like a body reaction. I just get very angry when I have to do it. But what I've done is so the same intentionality and focus that I have on work, where it's like I can work hours at a time and just get work done, I now flip that and then focus on relaxing or slowing down intentionally. So if my brain is like, go, 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 I tell my body, slow down, take your time, you know, and I don't lean into the habit because I'm trying to break it to reinstill better habits and things like that. So for example, all last month, I was like, okay, I'm not going to work on the weekends. It's just not what I'm going to do. And it killed me, because the weekends is when I can like just work uninterrupted, totally get way ahead, like be on my A game. And I didn't realize that when I was resting and I came back for Monday, the week, I was still great. I had more energy, more focus. I wanted to work even harder on those days because I had 2 full days to just totally disconnect and not even, you know, give a care to the world. Now, mind you, of course, if something urgent came up, I'd be, you know, there to deal with it. But it wasn't okay, today I'm going to work and check this off. No, it's like that can wait till next week. So we have to give ourselves space to work and rest. We are not machines. We are human beings. Our brains, our bodies need to rest. And like, it would just, even the resting would just be sitting there, not a TV on, not a sound on, just be in the silence, be with your thoughts, write things down. But that's the thing, it took intentionality. As intentional as I am with my work, I have to be intentional with my relaxation and slowing down. And so it's transformed the way I do business, because I feel like I own my time. Like time doesn't run me, I run the time. And that feels very, very good when things are just so quick nowadays.
No, I'm so happy that you mentioned all of those points, because I think it's just essential for us to kind of slow down, and that's going to be how we can catch up and how we can move forward.
Exactly.
It's literally, it's so weird, like because when I saw this, I already wrote this quote down on my whiteboard basically like a few weeks
Yeah.
ago. So when I saw you post this, I was like, oh my gosh, like I literally, like, this is what I'm thinking right now. And I think a lot of people think in order to progress and get ahead, we've got to be work. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's doing a disservice to ourselves. It really is.
Yes.
Body is tired and we just need to sit down for a bit. And the optimization of how you do everything after you rest is probably going to be 10
Yes.
times
Oh
better,
my God.
you know?
It is. It really is. It really is. Because something goes when you're tired and you do something, it might take you 3 hours. When I'm
Exactly.
rested, I knock that thing out in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's so different. It's so much better. I wish that was one thing. If I could wish I learned anything earlier on in my career, was that, because I felt so, I had, to your point, I had to always be on. I would say answering emails 11, midnight. Like,
Yeah.
just the way that I used to work was so destructive. And
Mhm.
I wish I had someone to say, Alysha, and people tried, but they weren't as direct as they probably could have been, or help me to
Yeah.
understand the understanding I have now. And it was probably something I had to go through to really appreciate what I
Mhm.
can do now. But oh my God, I mean, I would be up at 5 answering emails till midnight, plus work. Oh my goodness, just very, very unhealthy. And that's the thing. You think, oh, this is great. People see this. They see I'm up late and up early, and this is
Yeah, but
brownie
it's
points.
not.
Listen, no. If anything, it actually looks negative on you because it shows that you have no self-control. It shows
Mm.
that you don't have the regulation to shut it down,
Mhm.
to regulate, to have certain times when you work versus when you're offline. It can
Yeah.
actually harm you versus help you. Of course, now, mind you, sometimes it's needed when there's a key deadline or something. So I'm not saying don't have that mode, have that
Mhm.
mode, but know when to activate it versus not. That should not be your everyday. That should be a once in a blue moon.
Definitely.
And your leaders are looking at that too. So you think it's helping, but it's actually hurting.
No, you're completely right there. And I'm glad that, you pointed that out. And I think people need to understand that it's just not going to work if you're at 100 miles an
Yeah.
hour all the time. But obviously, I
Yeah.
understand that to build something, you've got to put in the work. I think, that's something
Yes.
you can't argue with that, but it's understanding, okay, when is the best time for me to actually just take a break? I think that's what,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
And your body feels it too. Like, I remember
Yeah,
last year we were at a very busy period, and I was bringing the candle on both ends. And I mean, at that point, I had been a pro at it, so I knew my limits. But I knew that I said, Alysha, if you are going to take culture shift to the next level,
yeah,
this can't be your normal. And
yeah.
it's like, this is the last time you do this, because you won't make it. Like, you will literally burn yourself to the ground. You'll be exhausted, drained, mentally, physically, emotionally. You won't be able to carry on a conversation. And then what? All that for what? And so I made it
Exactly.
very intentional going. I'm like, the moment I go into my business full time is the moment I hire help. And I'm
Hmm.
like, I will find the funds will find a way to make this happen, because I can't do this alone. I
Yeah,
can't be focusing on the clients, getting the work done, and thinking about all the systems I have to implement, and invoicing and financing and all the things,
yeah,
oh my God, social media. Like,
social media,
no,
yeah.
no, one person cannot do all this. So I was very clear that when we got to this phase, there was going to be protocols in place, because if it was just on me, I would not be here.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, no, completely. Well, Alysha, I've just got one more
Yes.
question just to round up
Yeah.
session, but I think this has been an amazing conversation. I have taken so much from this, and I'm sure the
Yes.
subscribers there, everyone is going to be really engaging with this one, I can tell. But my final question, just to round everything up, is so what are the three main things that you think someone should be putting in place to future-proof their HR career for 2023 and beyond?
Yes. Yes. Future proof your career. Data and analytics is not going anywhere. Even
Yeah.
if that's not your area of expertise, still understand the core key performance indicators and metrics for your area. So, for example, if you're in hiring, what is our hiring rate, attrition rate, turnover rate, promotion rate? All those key things, know those very well. If it's learning and development, what's your graduation rate for a course or a program?
Mhm.
If it's, retention or engagement, what's the engagement survey scores? For what areas of the business are they higher versus lower? Understand the key metrics that align to your area of HR, number one. Number two, Get outside of the box. Like, one thing that's great about HR is that, yes, there's, as with any job, there's lines that you stay within, but don't be afraid to color outside the lines. If you have ideas, if you want to innovate differently, if you want to approach a problem and solve it differently, do it. That's going to be key, because the world is constantly changing, and the way that we approach mechanisms and solve problems, it's not going to work. We have to continually think outside the box and bring those innovations to the workplace. So get creative and figure that out for what you do.
Mhm.
And I would say number 3, to future-proof your HR career, lead with curiosity, in a human way. And I think that's so key, because, and we're coming back to this core theme of we are humans, we are human beings, flesh and blood, emotions, all the things. And we are getting to a state where we're talking about real human topics in the workplace. We're talking about mental health, emotional health, women in the workplace, of course, race, and all those elements that come with it. We've never had a time where the focus of a human was at the core of so many conversations.
Yeah.
This is a time where you can begin to create themes and opportunities that have a holistic and humanistic approach to human resources. We need to put the human back in human resources. That is so, so, so critical.
Yeah.
Leaders can no longer think of us as numbers or as, dots on a chart. We are people that help build and mobilize businesses. And I think the more HR can understand that, the more we can then relay that back to our leaders that can then enforce and drive decisions forward. So continue to do that, continue to see the person before the problem, and continue to lean in sometimes with your heart versus, with your brain. And I think, you'll be fine.
Thank you so much for dropping all of those
Yes.
points. Like, I really appreciate this whole conversation. Like, just,
Yes.
thank you, because I think even me, I'm probably going to have to watch this back and make notes about what we've discussed here, especially on certain points that you've said, because it's just all valuable and it all makes sense. And I think this is what we need to hear, as for myself, even for people who are in different careers and they're trying to transition over to HR, it's important to understand the positioning from this point of view, and having conversations like this really make people think more about their situation and try and do things differently to progress within their career. So thank you so much, Alysha, for this conversation.
Yes. Thank you for having me, Alysha. If anyone wants to connect with me, I'm on LinkedIn at Alysha M. Campbell. Same with Instagram, Facebook. I'm trying to list them all. On my website, cultureshifthr.com, as well as my personal site, alyshacampbell.com. Please reach out, connect. More than happy to help and support anybody in their HR career. I know what it's like to start from the beginning and figure out this massive world and industry. Don't be scared. Lean in with your heart, and you're going to be fine.
Perfect. Thanks for telling us everything in terms of your socials and everything like that. And thank you everyone for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next one.